master has placed you in a dreadfully precarious position.
Dungeon Master and Dwarven Sword Master, Hobgoblins, Dwarves, Elves, and Halflings are some of the characters and terms used in this very complicated and controversial game.
You're playing the most phenomenal game ever created.
All right, what's up, everyone? It's another week, another Natural Ones. Vic is here as usual.
Hoi!
Thanks for being here, Vic.
And
we're joined by Yang Zhao.
Afternoon.
Thank you for being on. We're here to talk about his upcoming Kickstarter. I think we've talked about your game before when you were working on it, and I think it is intriguing to me. And it sounds like you're working with the same marketing company, I think, that Rob from Pulp Hummock, you were saying, is using. And I went to your website, and it looks really good.
Thank you.
And I'm interested in it because I don't remember if it was always going to be this, but you're doing like a 1E, 5E sort of thing where you could use it either way. And I think that's pretty cool. So
Thanks. Well, my original design, originally I wrote it for 5e, but I always wanted it to feel like a 1e adventure. And so I did have a Kickstarter for it last year for the 5e version, and I totally effed it up. So I said, okay, we're going to have a second chance this year. And I said, well, I wanted to do a 1e version at some point. And I said, might as well do it now. So you can get either version in the upcoming Kickstarter. And my apologies for the crickets. No, it actually succeeded. I did a really terrible job marketing it. So I had a friend who was like, yeah, you just need to start letting people know like 2-3 weeks before. And I said,
that's a bit narrow, yeah.
It doesn't sound right, but what do I know? And it was. So it it wasn't too bad. It was it made like $2,500. And I was thinking, okay, do I want to ship that before I do a 1E conversion? And I thought about it and I said, well, all the artwork is going to be the same. And that's one of the more expensive components. So better to push back the actual release of the 5e a little bit to get more really good artwork for it. And so I said, okay, I'll do this one and then hopefully get everything together, ready to print in the spring and get it out by summer next year.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, marketing. I mean, maybe we can do some like
sure
insider Kickstarter baseball. I'll just start here maybe because it is something to me. I'll say this. I've said this before. I didn't have any gray hair until I did my Makuhito Kickstarter, and then I started getting gray hairs. This Kickstarter I'm doing right now has been a lot easier, but I think it's because I'm blessed to have an okay sized channel as far as DTRPG channels are concerned, especially for kind of being an outsider and an a-hole. And so I got like a good platform. I got a good soapbox to shout from. I got a decent amount of followers on X, so I got a decent thing to shout from there than I did previously when I did like Makuhito. It was definitely, but still, it's still like one of those things where you don't even really know what you're doing. Like I was doing Facebook ads, and you're like, how do I target people? And then I'm looking at the metrics, and it's not really doing anything. And it's like, well, what am I doing wrong? And you don't really know what you're doing wrong. And you go to talk to people who seem to be like whizzes and masters at marketing, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, and your words don't make sense to me. So like I totally feel for that like you don't know what you're going into, and asking for people help and you trust them, and I don't think your friend was probably like trying to mislead you, but
No.
it's just-
I mean, he's also one of these people that has a built-up audience already. So all he has to do is sort of get the word out. I don't have that audience,
Yeah.
so that was mistake number one. I actually used to work in marketing, but I hadn't done anything since 2010. So like 15 years later, I was way behind the curve, and I dipped out like right when like Facebook and social media was becoming something that you could use in a professional sense. So all that passed me by. And there was a lot of other stuff that went wrong. My horrible misadventures with making a website that I got made, in the old one I thought was eventually pretty cool, but it was supposed to have e-commerce on it. So there were a number of people who told me like, oh, I can't get the money within this 30-day period, but I still want to buy. And I had told them like, don't worry, I'll have the late pledges option open on Kickstarter. The day I went to launch Kickstarter, it would not launch until I turned the late pledges off. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll turn it back on later. And I did, but it didn't work. And at the end of the day, Kickstarter was kind of like, well, too bad, so sad. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'm just going to sell this stuff directly on my website. I had the e-commerce package working. There's what they call sandbox mode, which is basically before you send out actual credit card requests for payments, you do it all virtually to make sure everything works. As soon as I hit go live on that, it crashed out the whole e-commerce thing. And I was like, and I remember it was like real late at night. And I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll get it in the morning. The next morning when I woke up, I got an email from the company that made the e-commerce stuff that said we're out of business. So I couldn't even get someone to do that.
Jesus,
and
just think of bad luck. What ancient like crypt did you like raid or something? And
he built his game on an Indian burial ground.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So and I tried various other shopping carts for the software I was using for the website. But the thing is that I could have done WordPress. And I said, well, I don't know how to use this, but 15 years ago when I was making websites for people, I used this other thing, and I went there and I didn't realize that it's so unpopular now. Like nobody really develops for it. So I couldn't get any of the other e-commerce stuff working. And it's just been like one nightmare after the other. That's another reason why I said, well, I gotta launch this one, because not only were there a bunch of people who wanted to buy that couldn't, in the original campaign, I hooked the adventure modules that are optional to the print version of the book. And that was great for people living in the US, but I had a ton of Europeans and Australians say like, I would buy the system if I could get the adventure modules too. That's what makes it worth it. But, it makes your book cost like $130 US because of all the import fees and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So now I've fixed that.
Good.
Thank you, my ear trumpet, as always, for your generosity, gifting a membership. Appreciate it. That's rough. Like I had my own misadventures with Makuhito, obviously, like the boat crashing into the bridge. That actually affected my shipping, because that was the exact port my books were going to come in through, and the logistics company I was working with, they were like, look, it was supposed to go in through there. Now it's got to go in through New York, which means the boat's got to go further, and then it's got to go further on a truck. So the price, because of fuel and resources, everything's going to be more expensive. And I just ate the cost on that, because I was like, no offense to Ben Milton, but I think it was him or someone was trying to get people to pay for some shipping stuff after the fact. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. That's just a surefire way, which I think whoever that was, I think it was Ben, but that's a surefire way to make the people that are your customers that are supporting you upset. And I just didn't want to do that. Yeah. And luckily I had enough of a cushion from that to eat that up. But that's kind of why for my campaign now for Wight-Box, the goal was so high. Like I wasn't going to underbid my campaign. and then be like, I hope it funds and I can at least break even. I was like, no, I need to have that buffer for at least for things going wrong, and it would be nice to make a profit on it too.
Yeah. So, luckily I've had Rob on my channel a few times, and not to shamelessly plug my own channel, but if
go for it.
if you want to develop games and you want to know like how the marketing business end works, Rob was on my channel to promote Gods of the Forbidden North 3, and I was surprised because I didn't think we were going to get into it, but it was like a whole 30-minute diatribe from him on like all the problems of marketing and like all the work it takes to go into it.
He goes all out though, like
he did that for
us. He goes all out in such a way that I'm like, I love you, Rob, and I'm sure it's all useful, but I'm never doing any of that what you just told me. Like,
I mean, he came on Natural Ones for Volume 3 and did a similar sort of. I thought it was great, and I think a lot of people in the chat were just sort of like, hey, this is cool. This is some insider baseball on like marketing and developing TTRPGs and what goes into it. Kind of, even from like a consumer perspective, I think it gives some insight into the behind the scenes of like, hey, that's hard stuff that you guys are doing. You got a lot of stuff that you're juggling and have to worry about. It's not just like hey, I made Elf game, go buy it,
Yeah.
I
think
he told me once what his marketing budget was, and I'm like, yeah, no, like I'd be happy if I make that much just on the game to begin with. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not cheap, let me tell you. But it is one of those things where if you sort of want to get into the game and you want to angle towards doing it professionally or like actually one day making a profit on it, it's something you sort of have to consider. At some point, you may need to step it up to break out of what normal audience you have and start getting more eyes on it. Because that was one thing I found with the first one. Even though it succeeded, it made like, I think I set the budget at like $500 and it made about like 26. I still felt it was low. I thought like, man, this, like a lot of people like this kind of stuff. I don't know exactly what went wrong. And obviously we haven't gotten any sales really, but because it doesn't open until October 1. But I've got a lot more people on my email list, hundreds more. The company I went with, they said, "Oh, we should do a VIP level."
I saw that.
Which I can understand why a lot of people would be annoyed with that thing. So for me, I was really pushing to, you're going to get more. Like it's going to be worth that $3 that you pay.
I understand the logic of that marketing because it's sort of like it's not just like what I did where it's like, hey, do the pre-launch sign up.
Yeah.
And hopefully those people, I think I looked at my percentage of people that signed up and it ended up being at those first like 48 hours, which are so critical. It ended up being like, I think 14 to 15%, which is kind of average, I think, for at least TTRPGs. So you have to kind of factor that in. Like you got X amount of people that signed up on pre-launch, but maybe only 14 to 15% of those people are actually going to back it, at least within those first 48 hours, which is critical. So
I think the highest I ever got was like 38% or something.
That's pretty good.
Damn, that's really good. Yeah.
That's really good. Like if you, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's like double average, which is like what I was doing. Like what I said I got was like average. So you have to factor that in. Yeah. But I understand the VIP thing. It's sort of like they're giving you $2 or $1 or whatever. And that just incentivizes them enough to come back and go, they're going to back that. They're going to give you the $2 because they for sure are like, I do want to back and support this project.
Yeah.
I am going to show up during the Kickstarter campaign. I'm going to give you a pledge.
Well, I think for me it helps that I'm kind of staying in the same niche in general. I'm staying in a kind of urban fantasy modern niche. So I'm not doing like a fantasy Kickstarter one year and then the next year it's like cyberpunk. So it's a completely different audience. So I can kind of rely on like my previous audiences. And that's why I use the Backer Kit thing where you pay like $99 per campaign and you can like set up the email list using your previous campaigns. So that's probably how I got to like the 38% because I was basically targeting like people that already like backed Modern Necessities, that backed my 5e Kickstarter, like the modern one. So yeah.
Yeah, I did the same thing. That's definitely like a useful marketing
Yeah.
feature that Bandcamp offers. And I think that the $99, if you can factor that into the cost of your Kickstarter campaign, especially if you're new, well, you wouldn't have a previous one.
Yeah.
Get that good Kickstarter under your belt, and then you can kind of build from that there. I mean,
I've had more. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, so that's like what I've done. I mean, Wight-Box has been so successful. I think partly, I mean, I feel totally blessed because it's been a total like grassroots thing for Wight-Box to do what it's done. Because I paid probably only a few $100s in marketing to like Facebook, and I tried to do marketing on YouTube. They kept denying my ads. I don't know if they didn't like the word white. That might, I don't know. Just theorizing because they kept saying there was a problem with my title, and I'm like, what's wrong with it? It's just the title of my game. So to me, it's been like a blessing to see like, oh, it's just been a lot of people that are really interested in what I'm doing. But again, I'm in a different unique position in that I have like I'm thankful for the audience and the soapbox that I do have. I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's rough. You gotta just take advantage of all these different areas that you can in order to get people to get eyes on what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think the first 1 or 2, you're probably just gonna have to take it on the chin. And it's not going to be as great as you would like it. And then also you probably need to just try a bunch of different things. So try Facebook marketing, try Instagram, maybe YouTube, God help us, Reddit, whatever.
Facebook has never worked for me. I like my first campaign, I put probably like $2,000 or euros into that in like the ad campaign, and it barely did anything. I've had more use out of that $99 for the backer kit stuff than I've ever had out of Facebook. I did Google once. I did like basically a YouTube trailer, which did all right. Like Reddit, I don't know. Like I never really got much use out of the paid Reddit stuff, but like just posting in like the OSR subreddit kind of gets you some hits at least.
Yeah.
And then I also go on forums like EN World and stuff like that, so that seems to work fairly well. And then just appearing on streams, just go on a lot of streams, especially like people with audiences.
Yeah, so that's basically why I went with a marketing company. Is I said, you know what, I don't really want to screw around trying to figure this out, and I said, even if it it's really going to eat into the profits, but I need like a larger mass of people who are actually viewing the game and or even if they don't buy it, they're at least interested in it to get future emails and stuff.
Your trumpet has been struck by lightning. YouTube didn't like TBE's white power marketing. I think that might have been it.
I want to eventually get to a point where I can afford like one of those like advertising companies, but I don't know, it's kind of expensive. Like it's kind of scared me after what Bob told me how much he spent on it. So I don't know, I'm just kind of taking it one step at a time. So I'm like every Kickstarter, I'm trying to like take it one little step further. So like you said, like my first one, my 5e modern one, I think my artists made more money on that than I did. But the Modern Necessities did a lot better, and then Blacklight did amazing. So I'm trying to just take it one step at a time and just kind of build up my my funds that I have available, and then maybe in a couple of years I can like afford like doing it properly. But
well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's proper. Everybody's got like a different path, and certainly reputation in this space is the number one thing. If you're known as the guy who can make fun adventures and you actually get them out in a relatively timely manner, that goes a lot into the next time you have to sell. And you also have more people theoretically that you can send marketing and whatever to. And even though marketing is sort of a 4-letter word, don't you want to know when cool games are coming out? So
I backed. I have to admit though that marketing does work. Like there was there's an American version of Where's Blade that I backed on Kickstarter. It's a Japanese TTRPG from like the late 80s, early 90s. And I saw it, and I just saw an ad on Instagram. I was on Instagram, and I was like, hey, this looks pretty awesome. I want to,
Yeah.
I want to back this.
Yeah.
This looks really cool. And so their ad totally worked. I saw it. I saw what it was. Went to the Kickstarter and I did the pre-launch sign up. And then once it launched, I backed it because I was like, well, I want this game. I want to see what this is about.
Yeah.
I did that with the Sword World. I saw the Sword World 2.5 English version on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I heard about that. I want to go back that. So yeah, you know, marketing sucks and you got to do it, but at the same time, it does have its place. And yeah, like you said, don't you want to know when a cool game comes out or when a cool thing that you might be interested comes out? Like, I don't mind seeing ads like that for Where's Blade or Sword World when I was like, I'm legitimately interested in that. I'm going to click on your ad. So
I think YouTube is definitely important. Like you said, like having your own channel with like a lot of followers is really important, but also just going on other people's channels that are actually excited for your product, that aren't just interviewing you because, you know, you're just like another like dude that, you know, is putting out a game and they don't really care. But like, you know, somebody who's actually like I said, interested in your stuff. Because when I did Blacklight, I did like a interview with the Black Lodge guys. And for the longest time, that was like the number one source for like funds for like most of that campaign. And it ended up being like number 2 at the end still. So like, you know, just, I don't know, just spend some time on YouTube, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I mean it's definitely something I recommend to everyone. Like, you don't necessarily have to have your own YouTube channel, but if you can learn how to be somewhat good on other people's channels, like learn how to, because you always want to speak about your own project well, right? You want to get out the awesomeness of the things that you're doing, and the only way to do that is practice, because that's a practice skill. And that's you know, really one of the reasons why you do start a YouTube channel, is because nobody's going to watch your early videos anyways. So, you know, that's where you suck, and then eventually you get good.
I still feel I'm terrible at like promoting my own games on in interviews and stuff, which I don't know. People seem to like me having me on, and like nobody in the audience has ever complained about it. But whenever I'm like trying to talk about my games, I feel like I'm just like, I sound like an idiot. So I don't know.
yeah, I think with Wight-Box, I think I've gotten better at talking about my stuff. And I think it's just that I think what it comes down to is I'm passionate about Zero E. So like talking about it, like when I was on your channel last week, you know, it's just sort of like, I'm really interested in Zero E and talking about it and telling people about it. So I'm hoping that sort of genuine interest and passion shines through, and that's what keep people interested. And I've actually had a couple people message me on the Kickstarter saying, I saw you on this person's interview, and you just like, you talked about it. You seem to know what you're talking about with Zero E, and you're really excited about it. So that was enough for me to be like, this is interesting. You know, I want to go check it out. So
I think people are just falling for my Dutch wiles, and you know, that's what I post by on.
So Empire of the Undying Sun. It's a horror 10 chapter, I believe. Campaign setting, campaign world. You got like maps and posters and all kinds of stuff, it looks like, on the website. In fact, I should put your website. It's in the thing below, but the video description below, but I'll put it in chat here so everyone can check it out. Go check out here.
Currently that goes to the preview for the marketing list. So if you want to sign up to get notifications, or if you want to become that VIP and get an extra adventure module, that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
I signed up to be notified already. So
and and eventually some adventures might come out by a certain Dutchman.
There may or may not be wooden shoes involved. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's pretty scary. That fits the horror.
So like my first thing when I decided to really make a campaign guide was it's probably 2017, 2018. And you know, there were a lot of stuff for 5e, but already it was sort of becoming a little milquetoast. To my opinion, like I wanted something that felt really deadly, and I wanted something that had a good flavor. And so I decided to do horror. And at the time, I didn't really realize that I was doing American horror, but only later it kind of dawned on me what I was doing. But yeah, it's so let's talk about it in the 5e sense for a second. It's for levels 1 to 10, which gets you halfway through a game, 20 being the max level. And it's designed in a way so that if you say, I want a fairly linear adventure, you could play it in that way. There's enough continuity from levels 1 to 10 to make a story. It's a little thin, but that's part of where the adventure modules come in. However, if you say, no, I freaking hate that stuff, I want everything zero prep, you could do that too. Sort of the backbone of Empire of the Undying Sun is a calendar. And so there is a strict calendaring system where certain events that are not within the player's control at all happen on certain dates. And, you know, that sort of corresponds with each chapter in the book and whatnot. So you, as someone who's doing zero prep, your players could be doing whatever, but then all of a sudden, the world can change on a dime as the world itself changes.
Yeah.
So it's meant to be played either as much on rails as you want, or as much of a sandbox as you want.
Okay, so if you wanted to be kind of railroady, you get the book, you get the adventure modules, and you just plug them in. We're gonna go through all this, get to the end, we beat it. Or you could like you said, are the calendar events, are they things like this army is going to attack this settlement on this day, that's part of like the world? Or is it more like cosmic, I guess, or both? Or what would you describe that as?
Both. So so there's like an A, B, C, and D story. So to me, the A story is whatever your players are doing. That becomes the story, the actual canon. But then there are other stories that sort of happen before this. The C story is on a cosmic level. Many, well over 100,000 years ago, there was a massive battle between some forces from beyond the stars and the gods of this world. And the gods won, but in order to keep those forces from coming back, they broke the world apart into smaller areas, and it's all fenced off with a barrier that if you walk into the barrier, you just disappear and you can't find your way back. And so the world has been changed and everyone's forgotten, except there are a few like wizards, and there are some gods from that time, and some of them want to take the barriers down to regain their powers. And also those creatures from beyond the stars, they still want to get in. So they're trying to influence people in the waking world, in the normal world, in order to get them to bring it down. And part of what happened is there are two wizards who sort of figured out how to do that. And they're on a quest to bring it down. And where the player's adventure begins is right as they're finalizing their version of a device that would do this. So one thing about horror is good horror, the players should always be on the back foot, right? Or the people. Like there's a big difference between Jason Voorhees stabbing a bunch of teenagers, and Cabin in the Woods, versus SEAL Team 6 go camping and they have to face Jason with, M60s and stuff. Like that's a very different thing. So the players being levels like 1 through 5 at the beginning, they have no idea what's going on in this greater cosmic and national sort of events that are taking place. They're just seeing the side effects, and what they're doing is sort of dealing with the side effects of all of it until, eventually they begin to exert their own influences on the fate of the world, of course. But to start off, they should always be on that back foot. So to get back to your question about what are the events. So some of them are more cosmic in nature. when the wizard who's making the device, when he finally gets it working, that sends ripple effects where in this world, it's not a world where goblins and orcs are running around. There's like shades and spirits, but a lot of it is like, well, my cousin's second uncle was drunk in the woods one night and he saw a Bigfoot, It's like, did he? I don't know. But then, all of a sudden things that shouldn't be there are breaking into the world. You have all sorts of political stuff that's going on between different factions at that time. And the players are just sort of like trying to figure out what's going on, what's trying to stop these events until the whole town is basically assaulted by a horde of undead.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of Berserk, like how in Berserk it kind of starts off the world's like fairly mundane. There's like hints of like supernatural stuff, but it's fairly like medieval mundane. But then the eclipse happens, and then like the spirit world starts like merging with the real world, and that's all of a sudden you've got like all sorts of crazy shit running around. So that kind of reminds me of that.
I swear I saw the cartoon once. I've never read Berserk.
No, I'm not saying that you stole it.
Yeah.
But
No.
Me. Yeah.
Well, yeah. For me, I would say the early Song of Ice and Fire books. I really like those where he starts off with the White Walkers Beyond the Wall, and then you go back and like there's really nothing magical going on for like
exactly
till the middle of the second book.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I set it up. Also, there's how to write dread, how to diagram a story. I've tried to follow that. So I'll mention it real quick, and then I'll give an example of what I mean. So like to write dread, first you have to establish a normal, and then there are subtle hints of something is not right. And then you have like an intense period of action, and then like that goes back down. So you're taking your foot off the gas and people feel they could rest. And then they realize like, oh no, that wasn't actually the thing that was a problem. And then you hit climax and you go on, putting your foot on and off the gas. So for anyone watching, like how that works is like, let's say your party's going through the woods and they find a village. And it seems like a normal medieval village. Everything is honky-dory. And then they realize like, hey, how come there's no kids around? And like nobody in the village wants to talk about it. If you bring up like, hey, where's the kid? And they just tell you to go away. So then you're doing something or another and you're going in the woods and all of a sudden you find dolls nailed to trees.
Yeah.
And then you find what could be a doll or a fabric of like a girl's clothes with blood on it. And then you decide like, okay, well, we have to get whatever this is. And eventually you find a boar comes rushing out of the bushes. Its tusks are covered in blood. And you kill the boar. You go back to town. Hey, we got it. It's all set. Everything feels good. But the villagers are like, yeah, we weren't really worried about boars.
They're a problem. It killed Tom, but
it wasn't the real problem, and then you come to find out it's actually like hags stealing children or something like that. And so that I tried to follow that kind of mechanism where you ratchet up the pressure in certain ways, and then you have like a relief valve, but then pressure will come from another direction.
Yeah.
And then, but you find out, oh, well, sort of the original problem is still there. And then that tension gets ratcheted up again. And so that's, in my opinion, that's how you make a good horror game, because you want people to start feeling stress and a little tight in the chest. But then you got to let it go because you can't keep that too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember doing that. I ran a Call of Cthulhu game a while ago, probably almost 10 years ago at this point. And that was, I always tell people this that get mad at me about zero prep, where I'm like, well, one of the most successful campaigns I ever ran was a very high prep Call of Cthulhu game where it was very, very much prep. But I because I feel like Call of Cthulhu has to be ran that way. I'm not good enough to run that zero prep. But I remember like doing lots of that. They were doing this investigation, and they sort of like killed some cultists, and they're like, "All right, you know, we did it." And it's like, no, there's so much more.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much more at play here. But that's but I do think that what you're describing, even from like a zero prep standpoint, could be very useful in how you interpret roles and how to play things off. You know, where what you just described with like the hags and the boar and the village, like you could easily come to that sort of structure and conclusion based off of some random rolls and oracles or random encounter tables, you know. So that is definitely something to keep in mind as far as like structuring your campaigns and games, whether you're doing a product like this or while you're running or whatever it is that you're doing.
And there's a lot of other tools. Like I have what I call the pressure mechanic, which I describe in there. Like if you've ever seen how people count cards at blackjack, like there's only a certain number of cards in the deck. So if you know that a lot of like low value cards have come up, then you're more likely to get face cards for high scores or blackjack, right? So people will judge like, oh, the deck is up +2, +4, and then they'll know if it's time or not. So I've got a mechanic in here where I don't like rep and like grinding rep, but there are certain actions your players can take which will either add to the pressure mechanic or take away from. So for example, if you're going by the campaign guide, right? You start in a place called South Bay, and in South Bay, arcane magic is strictly forbidden unless you have a license to do it, which the only way to get it is go to Wizard University, basically. And you have to agree on like certain terms of use and this and that. So let's say you have some sorcerers or warlocks who wouldn't be covered under that, right? So they're illegally using magic. Well, there's a group called the Zealots of Twilight who will kill any magic user. If you find a magic ring or lamp in the woods, they'll kill you, they'll kill your family, maybe your neighbors, just to make sure. So the more you're using magic unlicensed, the more points get added to this. So as you're rolling for random encounters as a DM, you'll get to a point where you can say, okay, now I have enough points to get a really deadly encounter with this group of the Zealots of Twilight. And it's the same thing with other groups. There's an elvish cult, the Brethren of the Fox. Well, if you may be tasked with solving who are these people and stopping them from murdering people in the town you're in. So if you're doing that, you're constantly building up negative karma essentially with that group. So when you do enough, like you become a big enough threat, a big enough annoyance that they're going to come after you. And so you would use them for a random encounter. So the pressure mechanic also helps the DM judge by the player's actions. Should I make this harder? Should we have like more targeted action against the players instead of just like they run into some wolves or something? And that even though you're doing zero prep and there's no story per se, it makes it feel like a story because now all these forces are aligning against the players.
Well,
I mean, that makes like a... Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Vic. Go ahead.
It just makes me think of like a Bethesda RPG where if you like piss off a certain faction, and they'll appear on the world map to like hunt you down, like or so, like some bounty hunters will show up to because your karma went into the negative. Like I always like that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to riff off of that same idea where it makes the players' choices matter, and I think that's what whether you are doing zero prep or whether you are doing high prep, you want the way you make your players feel engaged is the choices they make in the game, in the campaign, like matter, So if they are in South Bay and they are using a lot of magic in the open flagrantly, it's like, well, you're asking for this at this point, like this is what you're asking for. So
don't complain that your wanted level went up.
How many you got 5 stars, whatever. No, that's cool. Are there any other sort of mechanics? Because I skimmed through the PDF, which I guess I have it here. So
It is quite large.
I was skimming through it. People can kind of look at the table of contents here. What other kind of mechanics? You said there was something about, you talked about the calendar, and I saw that there's something about the zodiac. There's a zodiac sign or like something like that. What is that about?
So I've always kind of hated how they use sort of like premonitions and fortune telling in D&D. Like it's almost like nothing. But if you have a calendar and you know some of these future events, right, you can then start to have like real fortune telling and real prediction, because obviously you as the DM know what's coming up. So there is an astrological system, which unfortunately is not in the previews. But by using the stars and knowing the meaning of the stars, you can intuit cryptic knowledge of something that will come forth. Like there's so speaking of mechanics, there's a dream world where you go into people's dreams, and one of the creatures that they'll meet there is the restrained nightmare. And one of the characters will most likely get the blood of the nightmare, where normally you can't take things from dreams into the real world, but somehow this creature has its blood puts like a tattoo on the palm of the hand of one of the characters, and the tattoo will rearrange itself into the shape of constellations when the player wants to know like the direction of something, or maybe if it answers a simple question. And so by knowing the position of the stars at night, and there's a chart that explains where it is, where, you know, like what constellation is in the north of the sky, east of the sky, whatever, at every month. And then also there's some folklore meanings, you know, like if you're reading your horoscope. So you can answer the question in those ways. And it also works as like sort of a potentially divine compass, potentially infernal compass. Remains to be seen.
Okay. I just like that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not like what I did in Makuhito, but I think that like a lot of these cultures and stuff like that, riffing on how important, like, no one cares about constellations now except for like basic white girls and making excuses for themselves. But there is something interesting there that is like mythological that you can draw from, that I think people maybe should draw from in their games. So
well, the thing is too, if you look into the history of astrology, like a lot of it was really just a timekeeping device. Like the ancient Egyptians would know when this constellation is in this position, okay, the floods are going to come soon on the Nile, so we got to plant crops now. Or, you know, when it's time to take things in. Like they didn't have clocks, they didn't have calendars. That was the way that people kept time. And then there was also some mythological stuff that went along with it. Like this country is represented by this constellation or by, you know, this planet. And so I'm just bringing that sort of thing back into this world.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Because like I said, a lot of that stuff was important to a lot of people. I one thing, and I think it's cool what you're doing with this setting in this book, is, and WotC does this all the time, is they sort of anachronistically put like our modern sensibilities into this fantasy medieval world. And it just is, to me, it's come to a point, like I used to play my games that way, but it's come to a point where that's just so anachronistic. It doesn't make sense to me. And it sort of cheapens the game world. It sort of cheapens the setting, cheapens the campaign. When these characters are like walking around with the same values and perception of reality that I have as a guy living in America in 2025, you know, whereas a person who lived in, you know, 750 AD and is like living under the Eastern Roman Empire or under the Sassanids or under the Ottoman Empire or someplace else, you know, historically, they'd had like an entirely different worldview just everything, you know?
Yeah.
That's way more interesting to explore and I think riff on than like, wouldn't it be funny if there was a coffee shop in Waterdeep?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, and I try to get that as much as possible. I mean, you can't 100% do that because people wouldn't be able to relate to the game at all. But I try to explain. There's well, not in the preview as well, but chapters on gods where I actually don't have that many pre-made gods in the book. I instead go on like a lengthy thing of how you as the DM can create them, or I actually have my players make their own gods. And part of it is it's sort of a religion-wise, it's a Bronze Age setting where like every village would have their own god or gods. And then, you know, as that gets conquered and incorporated into a larger country or empire, they're just taking all those gods and making a pantheon willy-nilly. So even if you look at like Hinduism today, there's like thousands and thousands of random gods. And that's sort of what it is in this world. So you can have, you know, 58 different storm gods. That's fine. And your own can have your own flair. But for me, the important thing is I divided up into 4 areas. How do you pray to your god? So, you know, the players should make up, do they get on their knees every night, put their hands together? Do they sing? Do they do interpretive dance, prayer flags, you know, and depending on what they do, like if you have prayer flags up, okay, you don't have to spend any time actually praying, but you know, maybe some creatures are going to hear that in the woods at night. You know, and then you do it smartly. Like if you have to pray every day, maybe it's not so much, but you have to take time to pray. If maybe you only pray once a year, but you have to devote a whole month. So that character's out of action for a month while they're doing whatever their requirements are. So you got that, you know, the way your religion reacts with the outside world. So like giving alms to the poor, certain religions, you know, value education or setting up hospitals. Other ones are more worried about getting into heaven or reincarnating or this and that. So you've got that. You've got tithing. If you're a religious-based character, what % of your income or other things? Like I got one paladin. He worships a goddess of harvest and barley and alcohol. He's a dwarven paladin. I'll put that out there. So his goddess wants people to drink. So for his tithe, he has to brew and give out alcohol to everyone because she's a goddess of life. And the more people drink, the more they smash and create more life.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's fun. Like actually tying like you know, religion into your character like properly, and like it's not just like this nebulous thing. Like my character believes in this god, but it never like comes up. Like,
yeah, that's something I really hate about most tabletop role playing games. It's like they talk about their god with all the enthusiasm of like a Tuesday night bowling league.
Yeah. That I want to make a video about this, but I'm hesitant to do so as well. But that's something that really bothers me as well. It's definitely like a touchy subject, and I try not to drift too far into theology and stuff like that out of respect for my priest, and you know. But it's like But I do think that like this idea, again, it's getting in that mindset. Like you were talking about how, you know, there's going to be a god of like a certain, what people don't understand with like ancient gods is that they're like turf wars going on between these gods. You know, this god is the god of this city and this god is the god of this city. And when they fight, when those armies fight, and if this army over here wins, it was a signal that there was a cosmic battle going on, and that god lost and this god won, you know. There was like this mirroring going on. And that doesn't make much sense to us today, but you know, that's how people lived back then.
There's a lot of like, especially in like kind of like 5e circles and those types of games, there's a lot of like, I'm mad at my Christian parents, so I don't like religion in my games, like type stuff, which is always silly to me. Like,
what do you do in the cleric's class?
Just enjoy the world for what it is. Like you know, that's what role playing is. Like, you know, I'll gladly play like some devout like Muslim Saracen or whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, you know, that sounds pretty cool. Like in like some kind of like crusade setting, like, you know, whatever. So
yeah, and I found too that since most people these days aren't very religious, even if they identify with a religion, they're not really active participants. So a lot of people don't have a lot of direction. Whereas I think, if we want to talk about OD&D and games back in the 70s, everybody was going to church in the US back then. That was just part of the culture. So people understood not only their own religion, but like what responsibilities do you have within, a certain denomination or whatever. Whereas like most people don't have that now. So I think just giving people some guidelines, like even those 4 rules that I mentioned, once players are like, oh, I have to come up with some kind of prayer. Okay. I have to come up with some kind of, way that my religion reacts to the world. I mean, maybe it's to kill people. Maybe it's to kill people that, you think are bad.
Yeah.
Maybe it's to, I don't know, maybe it's to be like a neutral arbiter. So like you could have a religion that goes around being known as judges because they're very fair. It could be whatever. And what do you do to show your devotion to your God? Do you wear like, I don't know, your God's insignia on your clothes? Do you have a certain haircut? Do you have tattoos, whatever? People start to get into it once you sort of break it down into manageable steps.
Well, I think it's interesting and cool that you give it into the hands of the players, because I think that gets the buy-in like instantly. It's like, okay, you're gonna play a cleric or a paladin or whatever.
Yeah.
And now you got to figure out what it is that defines your character essentially.
Yeah.
What is their devotion?
That also works very well for like kind of like that's what's the opposite of monotheistic? The word like
polytheistic.
Polytheistic. Like kind of like that kind of word. Like you said, there's like 58 storm gods, and every village has like their own gods and spirits. Like it kind of makes sense giving it off, or like handing it off to the player then, because like this paladin is originally from some weird farming village, like and they worship this particular god, and then the other character has like a similar god, but they're from a different village. And so like I said, handing it off to the players makes a lot more sense then.
Yeah, and like at one time I had in one of my test groups, I had 3 players who worshipped death gods, but they were all very different. One wanted death; he wanted as many people and things to die as possible. Another one was more like Anubis and wanted to make sure people went from the realm of the living into the realm of the dead. And really hated undead because that's unnatural. It only goes one way, not backwards. And then another one was all about creating undead as in opposition to life taking over everything, and in a way to preserve what came from the past. So you can have gods like all taking different positions with different alignments, and I've got a chapter on like why you use alignments. And I kind of break it down into what I call on the table and over the table alignments. So like on the table alignment would be like nobody thinks they're evil. So there is one god called the Black Ram where he demands blood sacrifices. And later you may come to find out he's one of those beings from beyond the stars, and he wants to get into the world, and how blood is like almost like fuel for a lot of spells. So that's why he's really into that. Sorry, I was going somewhere with this and I totally blanked out.
That's fine. I do that all the time.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's part of having a 5-year-old.
But
you were talking about you were talking about different gods and how they function, I think. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. Came and then it went.
Well, you mentioned like the 3 death gods, and they all like are very different. But then I also like when there's like the one character who has like the god. It's like, my god's superior to like all of your gods, and actually he's like way more powerful than all your gods. Actually, all your gods are just like aspects of him, by the way. Like I like that kind of stuff too. Well,
or all your gods are demons and evil, and my god's still the good god.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they might be right. One of the things about the gods in this book is there are some gods that are remembered that are no longer in this world. There are some that have died, and then there are spirits, which are sort of lower ranking than gods, who are trying to become gods or convince people that they're gods in order to gain powers. And that original sort of power play of, all the gods used a good portion of their strength in order to keep these invaders at bay. There's a lot of gods that are still jockeying for position. And, like you said, they all have their own sort of territory, and some are looking to expand their territories and gain more powers that way. And that's all like beyond the human. Oh, sorry. Morality. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, you were talking about alignment. So
sorry
on the table and okay, I got it now.
On the table and above the table. So on the table, nobody who lives in the Empire of the Undying Sun thinks that they are evil, even though they're draining people of blood to serve their god. However, I think all tabletop role-playing games need an above the table alignment. Like, killing people for blood sacrifices is evil in all circumstances. Harming children is evil in all circumstances. And there are other acts like that, which is why the alignment of all the NPCs are done in over the table morality, right? So when it's listed on a stat block, like, they are objectively evil. They might be nice to you. They might give you ice cream that's not poisoned. They might want to be your BFF, but they're still evil. Like, pretty much all the high level wizards in this world are evil. They're nice and they're helpful, and they may aid you in your quest, but ultimately, they have got to break a few eggs to make an omelet kind of attitude.
Yeah. And they're dealing with powers that are best not meddled with. So
yeah.
I'm just looking at the stat blocks here because you're talking about that. So
So
chaotic evil here, so so this would be this is just, oh geez, it's lagging out here. This is just like for like the metagaming aspects is what you're essentially saying, is like
exactly
you'd classify it as chaotic evil. Within the world, there's going to probably be a different perception of it based on who's looking at it, but like from a metagaming standpoint and how to adjudicate things as chaotic evil.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, nobody thinks that they're evil, right? The Elvish rebels, they think they're doing good because they want to throw off the oppression of the Western League, but they are, like, killing random people to get that. So, is that morally right? We're going with no for the objective morality.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's good, they should not be willing to cross that line, even though they may be in the morally okay territory to kill evil creatures or evil people.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that makes sense. That might be a good way of, because alignment is one of those things where, like, I've tried to explain it to people.
Yeah.
Vic and I have tried, and they don't get it. And so maybe the way you've described it might be helpful for people to use it, because I do think alignment is important, and I always feel sad when I see like posts of people saying, "Oh, well, alignment is one of the first things I throw out," and it's like, and then they go, and their justification is like, because it doesn't exist in real life, and I'm like, are you serious? You don't think don't think alignment exists in real life in some form? I mean, we joke on the Gilded server about how alignment language is real. You can. They'll talk about not to get too political, but there'll be accusations of like, oh, that's a bad guy dog whistle, we'll say, like your dog, like that this is true. Like you can speak things in a coded way that kind of speak to your alignment, and people of the same alignment go, I know what you're saying, I know what you're doing, and people that aren't are like, I don't know what's going on. So to me, I think when you explain it in that sort of way too, it might help people understand. you know.
I tend to separate it between morality and alignment. Morality is what the characters think about themselves or about others. Alignment is what the cosmic forces think about it. Like you might think that you're a good guy, but ultimately it's up to the gods what what your alignment is. And if the god of evil says like, no, you're evil, like, well, that's what goes. Sorry, like that's and magic plays off of that. Like all this other stuff plays off of that. It doesn't play off your own feelings about the situation.
Yeah, like I think morality and alignment are a good way to think of it. For me, it's one is subjective, which I think is fine to play, but you need an objective point of reference, or else the whole thing just starts falling apart. And that's where I have over the table and on the table. On the table, anyone could act like they're good, even if they're doing evil things. You can have players who give a perception of evil, even if they won't actually go so far as to do evil things. So, how you want to play complex characters, that's perfectly fine. But there has to be that objective thing. It can't be like, well, the people from this race thinks it's okay to, burn children alive and eat them for dinner. Like, no, that's just not okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very much a metaphysical sort of transcendental argument position to take.
Yeah.
But to me it makes sense. But
it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm also a 3-point alignment supremacist these days. Like I know for 5e you need like chaotic good and chaotic neutral and stuff. That's just part of 5e and like since like third edition and stuff. But maybe even second edition, I don't know. But
it's in first. It's in you have a 9-point alignment.
Yeah, true. Edition. But no, I always like the 3-point alignment because I think like I need like nuance so you can just role play out. I don't need a label for that. So it's like lawful or chaotic, lawful and good. That's all I need, and then like anything nuance between that, I don't need like I said, I don't need specific labels for that.
Yeah, and I think it works all right. And the other thing is, players are welcome to change their alignment. That's fine. That's character development, but they're going to face certain problems. Like for Empire, I say that if you're a religious character, like let's say Paladin, for whatever reason, people started getting the idea that the oaths are the most important. And I think in the 2024 5e, it's the oath that gives you power and not the god, which makes absolutely no sense. But in this, I specify like, no, it's not the oath, it's the god. So you must be in alignment with whatever that god's alignment is. Yeah. That's the only way you keep your powers. Otherwise, you become a fighter or something.
Yeah. I think that focus on oaths is kind of a consequence of what I kind of mentioned earlier, where people are like, a lot of people are hesitant to like, do the religious stuff.
I think I'm going to blame the secret and I'm going to manifest anything myself. So, it's not the God that gives it to me. It's because I thought really hard about it. And so it manifested and now I'm this. Yeah. So, sorry.
In the first 5e campaign I really played in 2017, I played a monk who he went around like basically evangelizing for his religious system, and it really freaked out the other players at first because none of us knew each other, and I was just like trying to get them to convert to a system where you don't believe in any gods because they're all going to ask you to do horrible things.
Yeah.
And it weirded them out for the longest time.
I played the Inquisitor once in Pathfinder 1e, and he like went around with a warhammer made out of a melted down church bell, and he would just bash evildoers over the head. It was fun.
Nice. Yeah, so you would ask for other systems. So I do have a talent tree, which so for one thing I don't like about 5e is that I do like the skill system in that it's easy and you don't need to have a certain skill to roll for whatever. Like you can try to like do a flip over a table. You don't have to have proficiency in acrobatics or anything. But to modify that, I try to double down on the positives. So for each skill that's there in 5e, there's like 3 different paths that you could take, and you'll get bonuses based on that. And not all of them are like additions to die rolls. So like if you have religion, the first level is the same, but then you pick a path. So you could do like a path of the prophet, which will give you bonuses to convincing people to believe your religion. There's an inquisitor, which is you don't get any bonuses towards your religion, but you get bonuses against religions that are opposed to you. So if your god has an enemy, you know all about them and their trickery.
Yeah.
And the third is a heretic, where nobody in your religion likes you, but you have like secret inside knowledge. And then it maxes out at 4 levels. And the 4th level is you are a noted in your religion, you are a recognized religious authority. And for people not in your religion, they recognize you as a holy person. That could be good or bad. If you're a holy person in the Empire of the Undying Sun and you're not worshiping the Black Ram, they're going to have lots of problems with you. So it's like these paths, I think, help people to double down on how they want to role play a character. And
so, so are they like, there's not like you getting like this flat, like, well, now I got a +2 bonus now to religion just in general, and now I got a +4 bonus to religion in general. It's sort of like these very specific situations where these bonuses are getting applied to.
Kind of reminds me of classic Traveler almost, where like skills would do like different weird things. There wasn't always like flat bonuses for stuff.
I like that. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
There's like they're applicable to they're very specific situations, I guess. So.
Yeah, and there's other ones like the perception skill. So it's divided like one tract is visual perception. So you'll have extra things towards that. Another one is auditory, and then the third one is smelling and tasting. So you may be able to smell enemies that are getting close. So you wouldn't, even if they're hidden, goblins stink, and you can smell that. So
I like
that kind of thing. And I do plan on having that same thing for the 1E version. The only difference is with the 5E version, you still get the proficiency bonuses to the basic skill, just like the normal 5E rules work. Whereas these would sort of be subdividing parts of, instead of just rolling agility for this or that, you would have, you would specialize in acrobatics, or maybe you'd specialize in agility for, being good with a bow and arrow to add more flavor to the character.
Yeah, I like that. I think I never really hated the 5e skill system. It always just felt like it was underdeveloped, like it was just sort of tacked on.
Yeah, I mean, I like games with skills, but depending on how you're developing it, like if you're going all skills and like no other abilities, like you can make the skills very powerful. But you're right. It just felt like it was kind of tacked on. It is kind of nice that, okay, if you're a cleric, you'll get bonuses in religion. That makes sense. The problem for me is like, well, if I'm Catholic, that doesn't mean I know anything about Shintoism.
Sure.
Whereas you just get a blanket religion bonus. So, I think subdividing a little bit more helps out the role play.
I never really liked that they weren't in 5e, that they weren't modifiable enough for me. Like, I like having skill points that I can put wherever I want. So if I want to do this, but in 5e, it's like because of your certain class and your race or whatever, you start with certain skills, and then they just go up with your proficiency bonus, and you might get like expertise in it if you're a rogue or whatever, which is fine, I guess. But it always just seemed kind of bland to me. Like I said, I like having, it's like, oh, I've got 4 skill points because I leveled up. Oh, I'm gonna put it in this and this and this, and yeah.
Yeah. How? So, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say on that, but I am interested because this kind of gets my brain going to this, because you're doing like a 1E version. So how do, this might be a good transition. Do the skills transfer into the 1E rule set then?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really see a whole lot of need to upset the apple cart. Well, first of all, let me just say that the whole skill tree is optional. you don't have to play with it. There's never a time in the game as written where you need to have a certain skill to do something. These are all just little extra bonuses for the players and to help players sort of get into more of a role-playing spirit with their characters. So for 1E, my plan is, you're not going to get proficiency in a skill. But, for let me see, wisdom, I think it's religion, nature, this and that. So based on your character's race and their profession and their background, the DM should allow people to put points in things that would make sense for it. So like if you're a fighter, you could certainly anything like physical, like what would be considered athletics, like the 3 different thing in the athletic strikes, those should be available to you, whichever path that you want. But if there's some reason why let's say you're just a fighter, but you're really inspired by your god and you want to have like a little bit more of a religious background, you could then start, if the DM agrees, you could start taking, one of the religion paths, based on sort of a background play style choice. So even though, it's a bolt on to 1E, but I think it still adds more flavor to allow people to sort of customize the characters more should they survive long enough.
Yeah.
I mean, 1E does have a rudimentary skill system in it in regards to like background skills. So, that does exist. It doesn't really explain too much on how to like, it's not like what you would consider a very robust system like in 5e where roll a d20 and you get this modifier and it's explicitly mechanically laid out. But 1E does have that. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And this is meant to, should you choose to use it, sort of layer it on top. But, like I said, there's going to be a lot of OSR guys who are like, what's this nonsense? And not want to use it. And that's fine. There's a lot of things in Empire of the Undying Sun that are like, if you think this adds to your gameplay, go ahead and use these. Use some modified rules, pick and choose as you want. I have, I do have a section in the back, like about playing the game where I go into what I call easy, medium, hard, and chaotic evil DM modes, which make the game progressively more difficult. And I sort of explain like, okay, add this rule, add that rule, take away this rule, take away that rule. And I explain like how that alters the game, even to a simple thing like, not that this is in there, but, I was talking with John about encumbrance, okay, so if you get rid of encumbrance, there's no reason for your players to get hirelings, to carry treasure back. There's no reason to build a fortress. And so that's a downstream result. So I talk about certain things like that. Like in Empire, we, for story reasons, we get rid of death saving throws from 5e. Because it's meant to show you that gods can be very powerful in the world and you're kind of on the radar, you better be careful. But once people don't have death saving throws, right away they start playing a lot more like 1E. They stock up on health potions, recovery scrolls. They leave when they, instead of just sticking around a place with lots of wandering monsters, they'll go back somewhere safe. So, I describe that in there. And same thing with, I've got updated rules for dark vision. That makes it play a lot more like Ultravision from 1E. So now you can actually have very moody and dark dungeons that don't get ruined because everybody has dark vision.
Yeah.
Except the humans. The humans don't get
Yeah, but they all have some spells or like some goggles of dark vision.
Well, nobody plays humans anyway.
Yeah.
That's true.
Everyone always a tiefling or something like that.
Well, and that's another thing is there are like much fewer races in this. There naturally are no tieflings or warforged or anything like that. It's just sort of the standard races, but I leave it open. I say, okay, if you want to have it, that's fine. But the way it should be played is if they choose to be that, they have to hide what they actually are. Because if somebody sees a tiefling, they're going to think it's a demon, and the town will, form a mob and try to kill them.
Yeah.
Which happened. I did lose a player in a test group to that.
Well, that's how tieflings used to be in D&D even. But now everyone's like, oh, it's a tiefling, yay!
You look like a demon. Welcome.
Yeah. Coffee.
Yeah, and that's it. And I say in there, like, and if you don't, you just want to have them around like normal, that's fine. But what goes from like a very sort of strict horror type themes very quickly becomes more of a Scooby-Doo type game, which if you want to play Scooby-Doo, you're welcome to.
Yeah, that's always the risk.
I'm interested more in the 1E stuff. So what exactly, so like you're going to probably have like the same races, but they'll be 1E-ified. They'll have the same classes, but they'll be 1E-ified. Monsters, the stat blocks will be 1E-ified. I'd be curious because your whole intention with 5E was to make it feel like a 1E thing. Like, I don't know if you've play tested any of the 1E stuff you may have done already, but does it feel similar? If having play tested the 5E one, and then I don't know if you've gotten to test the 1E stuff yet, but I'd be curious to know because that'd be a good indicator of that your 5E goals, if you succeeded or not, or if you got close. I would suspect that you did, but
so I have not done a whole lot of it, and I am not doing a whole lot of the conversion myself. I've got the Dungeon Delver with. If anyone knows him, he used to write modules for Gary Gygax, and his like whole YouTube thing is like 1E. He knows. If there was a guy to make sure it felt like 1E. So that is one of the things for me is I don't feel that I played enough 1E to make that conversion myself. And to make sure it feels authentic for a 1E player. Like I kind of feel the responsibility. If I say I'm going to do that, it's actually got to feel like it, not like some guy just did some wishy-washy conversion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people who have taken a look at the 1E parts, they've said that, this looks cool. And I'm trying to do that while still keeping in the same, if you want to play 1E in a very narrative form, you could do that, or you could play it sandbox. So I'm trying to keep all of those things in there. But for the most part, it's felt okay. And part of the pluses is the adventure modules that you can get for it. Because if you're a DM and you're like, well, I don't like how this is going, I don't like how that's going, there's probably a module in there that sort of repositions the game to more of the mode that you want to see.
Yeah.
Okay. I just had a question, then it left my brain. I just did what you did. It'll probably come back to me. No, I think. I know what it is. He's not here. Greg Akaris, who's on the channel a lot, he's doing his Ares thing, and he's making it for 2E. And I think that's just like really neat because he already has his 5E Ares book, and he's doing a separate book.
Yeah,
that's 2E, and I think it's cool you're doing 1E because I think a lot of like the OSR stuff, and this is no offense to like Vic or even me because I've made BX stuff too. It's just like there's a lot of BX stuff out there, but there's not a lot of 1E and 2E stuff. At least not as much as I think as has been done with BX. Because I mean, Vic and I have talked about it. Like BX has sort of become like the lingua franca of the old school sphere. And I mean, like even for me, like doing 0E, there's not, in my opinion, a whole lot of. There's a bit more, but not a lot, at least comparatively so, of 0E stuff. So I'm watching all these people like kind of look at other TSR editions, and I just think that that's really neat. Not that BX is bad. I love BX. Look at my name. But
all my BX stuff is special and cool. I mean, who else is doing BX?
No.
Like, tracksuit orcs with AK.
No, nobody else. Like I think you
me.
have found something where it's
Yeah.
unique. But I think a lot of people are
Yeah.
other people that are messing with BX are a bit
Yeah.
more like uninspired in that regard. It sort of becomes it's become stale for a lot of those people. To a lot of those people, they're not trying to be as creative as I think what you're trying to do.
Well, I've stepped away from BX a little bit because Streets of Magic is more Wight-Box than BX at this point, with my own like twists on it. So
yeah, I'm just saying I'm excited to see like other TSR editions get a little bit of love and attention. I
love that Greg's doing like the 2E stuff and
yeah.
The 2E books were my first D&D books. One of these days I really want to start a campaign in 2E just to play for funds. But for me, 1E, I think it's easy enough to convert between AD&D 1E and basic stuff. Like they're not so dissimilar. So if you were playing basic, you should be able to take this and convert it over relatively easily.
Or OSC or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing and the other thing I saw was like, man, there were a lot of guys playing 1E, like playing old school games that I found. But the thing is, they're all playing in Greyhawk or they're all playing West Marches. And it's like, okay, you like the system. Would you like something a little new? Something that feels like it could easily be put in, but it's its own world. So there's something new to explore. Even if you don't want a meta game, every time you come up on a troll in 1E, you got to have fire, stuff like that. Well, in Empire, the rules are everything different. Seems familiar, and I definitely want to pay tribute to a lot of the stuff that came before, but everything's a little different. So you and your players have to, you get the adrenaline rush of like, oh crap, that fire didn't work on the troll. What do I have to do?
Yeah.
It's not that kind of troll. Oh no. No, I think that's cool. I'm excited to see that. And I think that it does open like another audience area to it. Cause maybe it gets 5e people to look at the 1E side and go like, oh, that's interesting. What's up with that? But
and I think to some extent this should scratch that nostalgia-ish for 1E people. The art, we don't have dwarves with matching tattoos and making muffins. Yeah. It's
you don't
it tries to well, maybe in some parts, but it's trying to take itself seriously enough that it's a fun game and people can be adventurous, a hero or whatever they want. You're not going to get morally shamed for,
like that black and white art that you're showing right there. It gives me like that, like the 1970s, like Conan comics vibes.
Yeah, it's
like
really
the
great.
Marvel Conan comics. Like I love that stuff.
That was a great period for adventure and sword and sorcery. Yeah, and that's another thing. I always thought of this as a little bit more Robert E. Howard than J.R. Tolkien.
Yeah, definitely. Which I'm fine with.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too. And I love Tolkien, but I think that the Tolkien, he's one person listed on Appendix N, and he sort of like has subsumed all of fantasy and all. I mean, rightfully so. I mean, he wrote great books and he made a great world, and I love them. But there's other books on Appendix N and other things that influence this game and these worlds that one could do a deep dive into. Like I don't know, Vic, if you're still reading Poul Anderson, but there's that, and I've been enjoying going through Dying Earth and stuff like that. So it's definitely like there's other things that are out there that one can reference that are interesting beyond the Tolkien-esque sort of thing.
Well, yeah, that's very good.
Well, and I think like you've been talking about this is horror. There's these horror elements. You have this pressure system, and I mean I think that could work in a Tolkien-esque game. There are elements of what would be close to horror in his work in some respects, but a lot of the stuff like within a Conan story or within a Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse or a Clark Ashton Smith story are a little bit more, I think, akin to that, or even like Lovecraft. Sounds like you're drawing a lot of like Lovecraft ideas too. So I don't know. I think that's a cool. I'm also excited to see that again. Not that I dislike Tolkien. I think he's great, but there's other influences out there that are really interesting and could be referenced.
Well, even Tolkien, like, there's more to Tolkien than just Lord of the Rings. Like, if you read The Hobbit, it's a lot different vibes than Lord of the Rings. There's like some shades of what comes later, but it's a lot more down to earth. It's a lot more actually what D&D is supposed to be, in my opinion. Than, but whenever people think Tolkien, they think that like that high concept, like elves and the gods and the and all that stuff. But like, I love the idea of like doing like a campaign in the Shire, like post scouring, like when like maybe there's like still bands of goblins and orcs like lurking around, and you're just like some part of like some militia that's like trying to do a cleanup, and like that's a lot more mudcore than like Lord of the Rings, like than than like trying to get the ring to Mount Doom. So people need to like kind of step away from that, like I said, that more high concept Tolkien stuff, and like look at what else you can do in that world.
And to me, one of the nice things is the way this setting is set up is that the campaign guide is big C canon, whereas this stuff should all happen whether or not it's your player's party doing it. It could be some other adventuring party that's achieving these things while you guys are off doing your own thing. But then the adventure modules for it are little C canon. So you can change how things go. Like I mentioned, there's an undead invasion on the first area you start off with called South Bay. It, according to Big C Canon, should totally decimate the town, and your players should be helping everyone to leave. Well, if for whatever reason your players weren't in town, or they decide, we're going to stay, okay, well then the game changes. And, you do your own thing, but there's, I have plans to do at least one adventure module, which is somewhat, I hate to use the phrase like Walking Dead, but you're in this zombie infested wasteland. You're trying to get supplies for the rest of the survivors, trying to organize resistance. So, if that's the kind of game you want to play, then you branch off and you make it like that.
How many, maybe you don't have a number. I think it's neat that you're going to do something I need to do for like Atomic Punk, and I plan to do for Wight-Box. I'm actually trying to write an adventure right now, at least a starting adventure, dungeon crawl. Like how many modules are you going to do for this to help like sort of support this? And do you have an idea, or is it just going to be something that like you just as you have ideas and as you think what would be cool, you're just going to keep kind of exploring this world and modules for it?
Both. So for this campaign, assuming you go to EmpireTheUndyingSun.com and become a VIP member, there will be a total of 13 adventure modules. If you just back on Kickstarter, there'll be 12. So I plan on doing 6-ish, and I'm hoping to get. There's already 3 that are written, and I'm hoping to get other people to write, 6 or 7 of them. But then after that's done, and after I fulfill this campaign, hopefully, then I would like to release a new one about once a month, and keep going. So there's a lot more to this world than what I've mentioned here. So some of the modules I want to be, so like I mentioned, you start off in South Bay and it's around level 5 that event happens, and you end up in the Empire of the Undying Sun around level 7. Well, I want to do it so there are lower level adventures over in the Empire of the Undying Sun. So maybe you just start off there and you play the whole thing there, or you start off a couple levels there, go over to South Bay, and then sort of pick up the track of the normal flow of the adventure. And it's also a way to make it more Bronsteinable, or Bronsteinable if you prefer. I plan on doing that. And then when I have people write modules in the world, I sort of leave that up to them as to what they're going to do. Whatever part of this world sort of catches their fancy, they can do whatever. And then, so once that stuff is done, then I plan on start talking about other areas of the world and like, how do these events affect them if they do at all? and different adventures they could play there.
Nice.
Okay.
In preparation for the sequel, eventually.
No, I think that's cool. I like that. I think it's cool that you're working with other people. I'd like to do that too. It's just I don't even know how I would even begin to do that, pay people and stuff. But no, I that's neat. I'm excited for this. I'm also interested. Well, let's talk about the art for a little bit too, because I think that's a big selling point for your book is like looking at these. I mean, the images that we have on screen here. They look really good, like Vic said. And I think I've asked you this before when last year on, but I guess just like as a refresher, because it was a while ago. You know, who is your artist? Well, how did that work out? Like, you know, what was your was art something? Has that been like an important thing? Was that an important aspect from the very beginning here, or was the world created first, or was it sort of a simultaneous thing of like, I know it wants to look like this and it's going to be this, I guess?
That's a good question. So the images I all have up so far, I've got 3 artists. I've got so the guy who did the top one on the right and then the one under it, the ship scene there, that's Kor Ang Kong. He's a Malaysian guy. The top left over there is a Brazilian guy, Rod Looper. And he did the house one there as well. And then there's another guy, Peter Gilmore, and I think you can see his work below somewhere. Or maybe not. Oh, that's weird. Oh, yeah. So if you scroll down, that one's Rod Looper. Okay. If you scroll down just a little bit. Yeah, that guy, that one right there is Peter Gilmore. He's a British artist. And the one under that too, I can see there. Yeah.
Oh, that one's cool. That one's creepy.
Well, that's actually why they're black and white. Originally, I was planning on coloring them myself to save some money. And then I got that one from Peter. And I was like, there's no way I could color that and make it better than what it already is.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I don't think these need color.
I think also black and white fits that old school vibe better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like this to me, like Vic said, this looks like like a Conan comic from the 70s. Yeah. I think it fits the vibe a lot better.
And the funny thing is, like, I gave instructions, like I gave some reference images to like elves look like this, dwarves, you know, wear these kind of clothes, but I didn't give any specific reference to, like, you know, when I said, like, have a party of people doing this. And I said, you know, make the party whatever you think the party should be. And it's interesting. Like, actually, I don't know if you can zoom in a little on the one on the ship on the right there.
Let me see here.
So, like, if you look at it, you know, this guy's Malaysian and these are pirates, right? So if you look at on the left, they're wearing like the conical, the straw hats. Like, I definitely didn't tell him to do that. It's just in his mind, that's how he saw pirates.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
That's cool.
But then there's also like the tricorn, so it's kind of like this weird, like, you know, it's like the diverse pirate crew, but like,
this guy's like a wizard looking, you know, typical European medieval guy. One would say it's diverse. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No,
but
like,
it's for pirates though.
They're no, I think it works. I think that's one thing people kind of with fantasy too, is like fantasy has always sort of borrowed from these sort of different areas and, you know, sort of mushed them together to make something new. And I think that's interesting. So.
Yeah. And the thing for me is like the adventure should be curated. So it's like I'm providing a certain structure so that it all sort of makes sense, but everybody brings their own flavor to it. So like if you ran the campaign, it would be different than if I ran the campaign. It would be different than if Vic ran the campaign. And I wanted the art to reflect that as well. Like, you know, even for South Bay, like I gave some reference, like, okay, the inside of the houses would look this, the houses outside the town look like that. There's a wooden palisade.
I like the Baba Yaga house.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, the guy with the shield, holding the shield up, kind of like this helmet makes me think of the Shredder from Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles.
Yeah. And so things like that, like I don't, that I wouldn't give notes to any artists about. Just
The
like,
house
okay.
looks almost modern. It's kind of, but it's like almost like modern like house, but with Baba Yaga legs.
Well, yeah, it's actually described as like a craftsman style house. I don't know if you know what that is, being in Europe, but I'm sure John
Not off
knows.
the top of my head, no.
I don't know. I'm ignorant.
Craftsman style houses. There was a Sears in Robux. They were like a department store, and they had a catalog every year, and you could buy a house by catalog that had instructions on how to build your own house. And so it's actually in the game, it's a house that a wizard has, and it's got like a stove and a refrigerator, but the stove has like a captured elemental living in it.
Yeah.
That they torture in order to have the burners go on the stove. He modified a cone of cold spell to keep food cool in the fridge.
Yeah.
I like that. You got to have like some
Yeah.
some jokes like that, kind of to break the levity a little bit. Like little when characters pay attention, they're like, "Hey, what's that about?" I get.
Well,
that.
it also kind of gives like interesting implications for the setting. It's like, like, is there like weird hidden modern stuff around that we don't know about? Like,
well, that's
Buy
the thing
modern
too.
necessities.
yeah, yeah,
If somebody really had those kind of magical powers back in the Middle Ages, of course they would be using it for things that we take for granted today.
yeah.
Like you wouldn't make like a wagon that drove itself that you didn't need horses for. Of course you would.
Yeah, or like a ship, or
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, keeping food cold or cooking food. Like you'd find a way to exploit that for sure.
Yeah, or an enchanted wash tub that automatically washed your clothes.
Mm-hmm. I actually had an idea for like the Baba Yaga chicken hut thing for like an adventure where it starts off where you actually have to first hunt down the house, like the hut basically, and it's like a monster that you fight. And then once it reaches like 0 hit points, that's when it like lowers, and then you can go inside and it turns into a dungeon.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm missing anything here. We could still go for another 20 minutes or so if we wanted to. Is there anything you what?
I would say probably yes. The Dream Realm and the Land of the Dead.
Yeah. I saw that in the book, and I meant to ask you about that. Yeah, thank you.
So I never liked the astral plane. I always thought it was kind of lame. It was just like another place you go to with clouds. So instead, I sort of remade it into the Dream Realm, where the Dream Realm you go to, everybody goes there every night when they sleep. And like, if you've ever had a dream and, your friend was like, oh my gosh, I had the same dream. It's because you can travel between dreams in the Dream Realm, and you two were in the same dream. So if you look at historically, a lot of people have dreams and visions from their gods when they're sleeping, right? So that's one way that gods will often try to communicate to people. And as the game progresses, gods are getting in contact with people more and more often and more directly. So you have that. You can find other people to go talk to them in their dreams. You can create nightmares for them by trying to harm them, or at least threatening harm. In your dreams, you can be like, if you're a spindly little wizard, you can look like a totally jacked barbarian. You can change, you can fly, you can do this and that, as long as you roll for it. There's mechanics so that people can basically take over their dreams, try to
lucid
convince,
dreaming, pretty much.
Yeah, lucid dreaming, basically. There's mechanics for that. And even fighting, there's rules on how to do a fight that isn't necessarily combat. Like I had a bard who the party was in a dream, and he challenged a group of hags who were also in the dream realm to a battle of the bands. And then all of a sudden Devil Went Down to Georgia broke out, and they were fighting, but it's like, if you miss, it's like, oh, you hit the wrong note on your lute. And whoever wins the song, the battle of the bands, won the competition. So there's things like that. And then there's creatures that can haunt you. So some creatures know how to use the dream realm, even though the vast majority of humanoids do not. But if you piss them off, they can haunt you in your dreams. And that has consequences in the real world, because if you don't get a full restful night's sleep, you don't get your abilities back in 5e.
Yeah.
So there are that same party, one guy screwed over a hag, and every fourth night he was getting night terrors from the hags, and wasn't able to get his spells and his hit points back. Yeah. So there's all sorts of things like that. And then I had one party figure out, so like I mentioned, you end up on another continent, but there are still potentially people back where you came from. And they were able to communicate back and forth in their dreams, which works out well. And then there's also the ethereal plane, which is also kind of sort of lame. So I turned that into the land of the dead. And basically, if you can see into the ethereal, you can see things that used to be. So nobody knows that there was this, ancient civilization and that the world was much larger before. That's all forgotten. But if you can see into the ethereal, you might be walking someplace in the desert and you see jungles, and maybe you see a city, like an ancient city. You don't recognize the design, but it's, like a ghostly image of it. And there are certain places where the dead remain. So like if you go to the burial mound of a famous king, you might see his ghost there. And then if you wanted, you could go to sleep on the mound and you might be able to make contact with them. So it gives players another avenue to find out information about the world that they might not have. It gives them options of how they want to play. I had there's one part where there's a trial, and it's like becomes pretty obvious soon. It's not really about justice. It's about how many people you can get to vote with you. So I had one group that they would go into the dream realm and they would terrorize the people who were the jury members into voting the way they wanted to vote.
Yeah.
So it's
just our modern justice system. Come on.
Yeah, pretty much. With less bribery and more dreams. But it really adds another dimension of play, because it doesn't have to be just, go fight on a, in a dungeon or on a map.
Yeah.
You can do these more psychedelic things, all you want. And so it doesn't have to be sort of the standard fare.
Reminds me of Lovecraft's dream cycle stuff.
Yeah.
Well, let's say in that the jury situation there, like let's say the players like kind of fail or they get found out. Let's say they fail. Does doing actions in the dream realm while you're sleeping, does that also affect them and regaining their hit points and spells and abilities back that are like the once per day stuff in 5e?
It could, yeah.
So like if let's say even if you're successful, could you in theory have it also affect? Because like, well, maybe it was something you tried to do really big, or like you're not really resting because you're doing stuff while you're sleeping, but you're still asleep, but
So yeah, there's also a scale of like, how much do you remember about your dreams? So there's times a god might contact you and you don't remember anything. So, usually that's, you're fine. But if you remember the dream, very vividly, you don't get rest. So you take a level of exhaustion, you don't get those things back. So there's a lot of stuff that, they really have to balance out. Like, if we know we're potentially going into battle, is it worth it more to do this stuff in the dream, or you have somebody who's maybe not fully rested up.
Because terrorizing them, if you know you're going to battle, like, oh, let's terrorize the other side, you know, and we terrorize them, but now we go into battle and they're terrorized. They don't have any sleep, but we don't have any either, and now we're it's a wash maybe, or it's, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. And the other thing I would say is it slowly builds up to wargaming. Whereas I
wanted to ask you about this actually, because I think you mentioned you had referenced chainmail, which is obviously intriguing to me. And the last time I talked to you about this, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's I haven't quite finalized the chapter because the sequel game that'll be out in a few years, hopefully, it relies a lot on wargaming. And my question right now is like, well, how much do I need to include for this? Like, I don't want to make up a whole game's worth of rules just for chapter 10. So, you know, how much to put in and how much not. But if you look at like what Gary said he was doing, is like the original D&D stuff was like you were in some kind of chainmail campaign, and then during off seasons for fighting, you would have an individual go out and look for loot to fund you know, armies or this or that. I'm going the other way, whereas you're starting on an individual and eventually you build up an army. So as the game goes on, you start to become more responsible for other people in the world. Like in chapter 5, the town's getting invaded. So, you know, you got to try to save as many of those people as you can. You're definitely not going to be able to save everybody, but, you know, as much as you can. And then, you know, you're on a ship for a while. So there's other people on that ship. You have to try to protect them. But once you get to the Empire of the Undying Sun, like everything just kind of breaks apart. You know, you very well may end up a cult leader. You might be leading some freedom fighters. And so part of like chapter 8 is like there are many objectives in that chapter, too many for you to possibly do as a party. So you have to hire other people to try to complete those objectives. So now you have hirelings, you're coordinating things. In chapter 9, which we've got the Black Pyramid, which is a mega dungeon that like this, it reconfigures itself based on what players and other factions will do to it. And, you know, you really need to make allies there because you're not going to be able to murder hobo your way into killing everything in this pyramid. There are, you know, magical divine forces that are against you. There are other factions from other worlds that have their own objectives in there. So you have to figure out a way to work with people and form this military component to have them do other things for you. And then when we get to level 10, you know, you're sort of back in the world. The Empire of the Undying Sun has completely fallen apart. It's in civil war. You know, and the question, and you've got to get back to South Bay. The question is, what do you do? Do you SEAL Team 6 it and you're trying to be all sneaky? Or if you had you know, if you, assuming you didn't go full murder hobo for the first 7, 8 chapters, you would theoretically have allies who you could get to work for you. And in chapters 8 and 9, there's a ton of loot. So if you kept all that loot, if you're bringing that loot with you and you have hirelings and whatnot shipping with you, you can hire armies. You can hire armies. You could, if you wanted, you could take over the empire. You could back one of the factions to take over the empire. You could form, you know, a naval flotilla to go invade the Empire of the back to South Bay. You could, if you want to be sneaky about it, there's a few magical ways that you could just try to pop in. You could do a split thing where you have this army attack and you're leading your own party separately while they're creating a diversion to get to your objectives. So wargaming becomes an important part. And we use, you know, more macro rules where depending on whatever kind of forces you can get, if you can get archers, if you can get infantrymen, if you can get farmers with pitchforks, whatever you got, trying to fight, that, you know, you could be totally dashed against the rocks as you're trying to get back. Or, you might be able to get back. There might be people there who are willing to help you out, guerrilla style. So there's a lot of variability in how that plays out. And for the players themselves, how much they want to control that and direct the military actions, that's totally up to them. They can come up with all the war plans if they want, and then we'll roll it up and see what happens. Or they could allow the DM, like each, there would be martial people who you meet along the way, assuming you didn't piss everybody off, who, you'd say, okay, well, they can take over for this.
Yeah.
And the DM just rolls in the background, and that affects the terrain on the ground. So, you could have like a 10-day march in South Bay, and like everything changes overnight because the army drew all the enemies away, or they screwed up and they all died, and now the enemies are on your trail.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
So how does the adjudication of that work? You're saying it's more abstracted, and I think I remember you saying you were at least sort of looking at chainmail. I don't know if you like necessarily adapted it, but you were at least sort of like, how did they do it back in the day?
Yeah, I'm using modified chainmail, where, well, that's the plan. That's the plan. So you would basically take the same, there will be unit stats, like where, okay, you have like people from this faction, they count as such and such type of a unit. And then that unit versus some other unit, there's, pluses and minuses. And then based on the amount of troop strength, you would be able to roll for that and adjudicate if it works or if it doesn't.
As long as it's not the war machine system. I know people love the rules cyclopedia, but man, those mass combat rules are just not good.
It's more simple for this one. I think I've decided that, for the sequel game, things are going to be a lot more varied and a lot more options. But I think I'm just keeping it more simple for this because at the end of the day, you raised an army, but it's not like necessarily a professional army that you've had time to really develop. So it's the Rebel Alliance, they're kind of by the skin of their teeth type of thing. So I think I'm just going to keep it more simple. So it's still fun for anyone who wants to direct actual, unit to unit combat, but it's not overly complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Makes sense.
That was another question I was going to ask, and then it escaped me. I don't remember what it was. Sorry. Man, I'm tired. It's been one of those days and nights. So I can't remember what the question was. Now it's going to bother me. Oh well. I think it sounds really cool. I like the art. I like the design that you're going for.
Thank you.
I like the use of 1E. I think that's really neat. Like I said earlier, I think that more people referencing that and giving these other additions some love is important. And even in the context of 5e, like putting that back to it. I think the last time we were on, and we didn't really talk about it here, but was just like using 5e itself. And I think it's cool to use 5e at this point. I've admitted that I was kind of wrong about 5e in the past, and I was a little over. Like I think it has some worthy things to be critical of, but I also think it's a fun system, and the way that you're adapting it and using it, like the skill system, removing death saves and things like that, I think sound like good choices for making it feel like how you're saying you want it to feel.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And like I mentioned, I have sort of like different levels of play. And I think most of the problems with 5e, bonus actions, kind of they're not my favorite, but I can live with them. I like reactions. I like monsters that have layer actions. So the environment becomes part of the battle. I like that kind of stuff. I think it works well. I think only the rest system is a problem. And even with that, there's alternative roles in the DMG.
Yeah.
And for me, when I finally get to play this just for fun and not have to worry about testing it, I think I'm just going to do, you don't get hit points back on a long rest, but you do get hit dice. And should you choose to use them, you can.
Yeah.
Here's
You
a
know?
question. Doug Sessom says, "Is this good for solo play?"
I'm going to be honest with you, Doug. I have not tried it out solo play.
I would assume you could probably finagle a way of making it work.
Yeah.
But you might have to make your own oracles and things like. But you were saying like the events that happen, you could at least that could help with that aspect of solo play. It sounds like.
Yeah.
I remember what it was. I was going to ask you because it was about the war game part. So, and it has to do with 1E. Are you going to go full madman and give number of appearing of like 200 to 300, orcs or something like that, for number of appearing for monsters? Because that's one thing I think with 5E, they don't really give you a good number of appearing on monster stat blocks.
Yeah.
If you don't have an answer, that's fine. But like,
sorry. So you mean sort of like the number that you
like
would have in a random group, or
like when you say you're traveling across the wilderness and you're like, oh, there's a random encounter of bandits here, and then you roll and it's like, oh, it's like a raiding party. There's 150 bandits that you encountered. They're on their way to raid a village or something like that. Like, is that going to be a possibility?
I would say not 150, but otherwise, yes. So I have on there for there's one chapter about South Bay area, and it has random tables for encounters in all the areas in South Bay, and there's another one for the Empire, the Undying Sun, and then another one for the ocean. And so there's a random encounter table, which tells you if it's like a neutral encounter, a positive encounter, if it's like a monster encounter, and then the difficulty, like if it's easy, medium, hard, or deadly. And then if you do get one of those monster encounters, there is a rating for like how many monsters there would be per level of what you rolled. So like if you rolled an easy encounter, there might be 3 of whatever creature. If you rolled deadly, there might be 12. So there is in that sense, it is differentiated depending on how you rolled it up.
As long as there's something, because that was something that always bothered me. Because I always tried to use random encounters and number, but there was always never like a number of appearing, and the random encounter tables. I remember I had to look up online. I found like something someone had made, like a database of like all the 5e monsters arranged by terrain type, so that I could like have something of a random, because I didn't have 1E or any of these other previous things. I just had 5E at the time. I didn't have this other stuff. So I at least appreciate that, because that's some guidance that I think was missing from 5e.
5e always kind of does it more like adventure or like area specific. So each area or each module will have its own like table, and it's like Ravenloft, it's like 2d6 werewolves, and then in this other area it's only like 1d6 werewolves or 1d4 or whatever, and it doesn't really give like that universal, like it's you kind of expect to just make it up on your own, like depending on where the players are at.
Yeah, that's only so useful, when it's something like that. So,
I mean, I do have it divided up more by what you will most likely be encountered by the area. However, I do mention that, like, if you're running this campaign, keep your own random encounter tables too, and you can add to what's already there, or like I said, you can swap out using the pressure mechanic. You can swap out other types of encounters with ones that are on the random table based on how much your players are loved or how much they pissed off the local populace.
Cool. Well, we're at like the 2-hour mark, and I want to encourage everyone to come check out Yang's game. Link is, I'll throw it in the chat again to your website here. Right here. So go to empireofthedyingsun.com, sign up for the pre-launch. Even do VIP. Sounds like you get a lot of bonus extra stuff. Maybe tell people the bonus stuff that they get.
So the most important will be a module called Fairy Hill, written by Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. He wrote 3, and this is the first of the 3. So the adventure modules themselves are meant to be like, you could plop them into your own If you're not playing Empire, you can plop them into some other setting just fine, or you can just use it as a one shot if you prefer. So you get this. You will get colored tokens for all of the creatures from Empire of the Undying Sun, so that that will be sized appropriately, so you can use them in Roll20, Foundry, whatever you want to use, or just print them out, use them on your tabletop. And posters. So if you back at the physical level on the campaign, you will get print posters. I think it's one poster. We said, you know what? I don't remember. I think let's say one. Let's say it's one. I have not chosen what the image is, but they'll be like the images that you've seen there. I'm going to put it up to a vote right before we go to print, because I haven't gotten all the materials that I'm going to. And if you back at the digital level, you will get a digital file that you could use.
Yeah, cool. So check it out. It'll be going, you're saying October 1st?
It'll run October 1st through the 30th,
so
I
right
think.
Before Halloween.
Yeah.
This is perfect. So like Wight-Box ends on the 1st. You go check out Empire of the Undying Sun right as it ends, it's transition straight to there.
And I'm sure you could convert Empire of the Undying Sun into a Wight-Box rule set.
If the 1E, it probably wouldn't be too hard. Wouldn't be too hard. Thank you for coming on and checking that out, or telling us about it again. I think I'm excited for the 1E stuff, and it sounds like there's a lot of cool stuff that you're doing with 5E, I think too. So
thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Before we go, I guess too, like Vic, do you have anything you want to point people towards as well?
Not too much. I'm still trying to wrap up, all the stuff I still owe people. I'm hopefully in the next few days I'll finally drop the last, in quotes, work in progress file for Blacklight to all the backers. I need to do like 15 more like magic items or whatever, but that shouldn't take too long. I just kind of got distracted by all this stuff that's happening in real life the last week or so. That kind of like I don't know, put the kibosh on things. I was hoping to be done sooner, but thanks everyone for their patience, basically. And that's about it. Next year, I'm hoping to do the Kickstarter for my my first standalone game. It's gonna be OSR still, but it's called Streets of Magic. It's my own like urban fantasy kind of like setting. I don't really have much to say about that yet. Keep an eye out next year. I'll talk all about it then.
For me, Wight-Box broke 40K. It's kind of been hovering around like at 40K. Nice. It's been funny. Like it actually dipped after I broke 40K. It went below 40K again, and now it's broken back above, and then it started going back down again. Which happens. That's another terrifying thing as you're doing a Kickstarter, especially when you're not funding. Yeah. When you're not funded yet, is like watching like pledges go up and then people cancel pledges, and you're like, what's happening? So, But yeah, it's going well. Check out Wight-Box if you haven't already. It's 0E with a bit of chainmail in to fill the gaps in the alternative combat system, the D20. You get a set of dice for the box set in a nice box with a wilderness game board, 3 little booklets and dice, and a referee screen. And I'm excited to do that. I guess the one thing I'll say as an update, I updated on Kickstarter, is I have an editor. I found someone who offered their editing to me a while ago, and they're super nice to me, and I wanted to use them. So the book will have another set of eyes that are paid to look at it.
Nice.
Because I don't know, you guys have probably experienced this too, where it's like you've kind of tried to edit yourself and your eyes get so used to looking at your own words that you still miss stuff. And so I think it'll be good for me to have a second pair of eyes, because I've looked at it over and over again and I still find mistakes, and I'm just tired of looking at this. This needs to be someone else's problem. So I'm going that route.
I'm also very dyslexic, so I always need to have an editor
Yeah.
or else it doesn't make sense.
I'm also dyslexic too. I'll write things and I just like assume knowledge, or like I'm so dyslexic that I'll like miss words in my sentences too. So like I think I typed them, but I didn't. I do that a lot. But
yeah, I tipped my editor an extra $20 for some alcohol after the last chapter.
You're gonna say
I was
that?
randomly reminded real quick, since I'm a one-trick pony, and also because people kind of requested it, I am working on a modern supplement for Wight-Box.
Oh,
just,
yeah.
just so people know.
Nice.
So it's called 0E Dog 30. Basically your special forces versus like monsters and like all that stuff. My usual shtick, but it's what I'm good at, and what people every time some new like the flavor of the I'm not trying to be call your stuff flavor of the month, but you know what I mean. Like the new like hotness in the OSR comes out, everyone's like, hey Vic, do the modern stuff. I'm like,
when
okay.
when are you gonna do your modern thing for whatever the new
I'm
thing
like,
is?
I mean, as long as people request it, like I'm fine with that. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Yang, for coming on and telling us about your game. I hope it does well. I hope people sign up. Go again, check out the website here. Again, empireoftheundyingsun.com. Sign up pre-launch. Do the $2.99. Get the extra goodies for it. And thanks for coming on. I hope it works out well and you get some success and you don't have as much roadblocks as you had before, which I get them. Man, those roadblocks suck and they're so unexpected, and especially when you've never really done this before and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to worry about that too. It's terrible. I don't think people that have never done a Kickstarter, they don't understand that.
It's a lot more. You end up dealing with a lot more nonsense than working on your own project at some point.
Yeah. Like I've wanted to work on my stuff, and it's this Kickstarter is like it consumes all your time, the whole month that it's going and beyond.
Yep.
To where you're answering questions, dealing with logistics. It's not always fun.
Yeah. Every time I start a Kickstarter, it's like, oh, I'll use that month to like get like all this work done, and like none of it ever happens.
Yeah.
Nope.
You're just sitting there refreshing your Kickstarter,
answering questions, answering messages of people asking questions about it. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on. I hope it does well, and I look forward to seeing it launch October 1st. Everyone remember October 1st. Do you have a time for October 1st? Probably. Or not yet. I'm sure you'll probably update people.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I might do it a little later in the day, so then it rolls over into Halloween.
Okay, that'd be good. Yeah, because it's horror. So that'd be good. And then you can kind of be like, it's the Halloween. Hurry up and back before it's over.
Exactly.
Oh, also, I think the 22nd, I'll be on Young's show, and we'll be talking about like horror and like using like modern settings for horror, and like the difference between American horror or like the American mythology as far as like supernatural shit goes versus European mythology. And that should be an interesting discussion, I think. So
yeah, I think so.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll end the stream here. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you, chat, for the few super chats you did and your generosity, good questions, and being nice in the comment section. And we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you guys for watching.
Thanks for listening to my nonsense, everyone.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.